Emily Carter and Claire Matthews were the kind of best friends everyone envied. Inseparable since childhood, trusted like sisters, until one wedding day turned their bond into murder. Emily Carter had always been the kind of person everyone admired. She was kind, graceful, and had an easy smile that made people feel at home. Growing up in Maplewood, she was known as the girl who could light up any room she walked into. When news spread that she was getting married, the whole town buzzed with excitement. Her wedding to Daniel Brooks was set to be the event of the year, a union between two beloved people who seemed made for each other. Daniel, a talented architect, had fallen for Emily's warmth and sincerity the moment they met. Their relationship blossomed quickly, and within 2 years, he proposed under the old oak tree in her parents' backyard. It was a picture-perfect romance, the kind everyone dreamed about, but few ever found. On the morning of the wedding, the sky was clear, the air filled with the scent of blooming roses. The church stood decorated in soft whites and blush pinks, the result of months of careful planning. Emily looked radiant in her lace gown, her joy shining brighter than any jewel. Friends and family gathered, capturing photos, laughing, and waiting eagerly for the ceremony to begin. At her side was Claire Matthews, her maid of honor and childhood best friend. Claire had been with her through every milestone, first loves, heartbreaks, and now, the wedding day. She smiled as she helped Emily with her veil, whispered compliments, and kept everything running smoothly. To everyone watching, the bond between Emily and Claire seemed unbreakable, the kind of friendship built over decades of shared memories. No one could have guessed that behind Claire's calm expression hid envy, so deep it would soon turn deadly. The day that began in love and laughter was already marked by an unseen darkness. Claire Matthews had always been the quiet one, the kind of friend who stayed in the background, happy to let Emily shine. They had grown up side by side, sharing everything from secrets to dreams. But things changed the day Claire met Daniel Brooks. It happened years before he ever crossed paths with Emily, at a charity event hosted by the local council. Claire had been instantly drawn to him, impressed by his charm and kindness. For weeks, she thought about him constantly, imagining what it might be like if he were hers. When she later learned that Daniel had started dating Emily, the news felt like a knife to the heart. She had smiled and congratulated her best friend, pretending to be happy while something heavy settled in her chest. She told herself it was just bad luck, that she'd move on, but her feelings for Daniel only grew stronger as time went on. Each time she saw Emily and Daniel together, the jealousy burned deeper. They looked perfect, always laughing, always in sync, and it made Claire feel invisible. She tried to distract herself, going on dates and throwing herself into work, but nothing helped. Every reminder of Emily's happiness became unbearable. By the time the wedding was announced, Claire's emotions had twisted into something dark. She convinced herself that Emily had taken what was meant to be hers. The more she thought about it, the more she believed she was the one Daniel should have chosen. In the quiet of her apartment, surrounded by photos of the couple she claimed to love, Claire began to plan. She didn't think of it as revenge at first, only as setting things right. But deep down, she knew her love had turned into something dangerous. The morning of the wedding arrived bathed in sunlight, the kind of day people would later describe as perfect. Emily woke early, her heart fluttering with excitement as she looked out at the golden sky. The air was filled with the scent of flowers, laughter, and the hum of preparations. Bridesmaids hurried around her, adjusting decorations and curling hair, while photographers captured every joyful detail. In the middle of it all stood Emily, glowing, calm, and completely unaware of the storm quietly forming beside her. Claire arrived at the bridal suite carrying coffee and pastries, her face lit with a friendly smile. No one noticed how pale she looked, or how her hands trembled slightly when she placed the drinks down. She greeted Emily warmly, hugged her tightly, and complimented her dress with words that sounded genuine. To everyone else, it was a touching moment between best friends. To Claire, it felt like a farewell. Throughout the morning, she helped fix Emily's veil, organized the bridesmaids, and made sure the schedule ran smoothly. Every move she made was precise, deliberate. In her purse, hidden beneath tissues and lipstick, was a small glass vial containing the poison she had prepared days earlier. She had stolen it from her aunt's medical cabinet, mixing it carefully at home while convincing herself it was the only way to end her pain. As the music began to play and Emily prepared to walk down the aisle, Claire slipped out of the room briefly. She checked the vial, her heartbeat quick and steady. Soon, she would have her chance. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. When the doors opened and Emily appeared, radiant in her white gown, Claire smiled like everyone else. But her smile carried a secret that would soon shatter everything. The ceremony ended in a blur of joy and applause. Guests cheered as Emily and Daniel shared their first kiss as husband and wife, showered in petals and confetti. The newlyweds looked radiant, glowing with happiness as they walked hand in hand down the church steps. Cameras flashed, music played, and laughter filled the air. Everyone believed it was the start of a beautiful future. But among the crowd, Claire watched with a strange calm, her heart pounding beneath her dress. She had spent months planning for this moment, and soon, she would act. The reception was held at a countryside venue draped in fairy lights. Tables were set with golden centerpieces and crystal glasses that sparkled under the chandeliers. Guests danced, toasted, and shared stories about the happy couple. Claire mingled easily, chatting and smiling, blending perfectly into the celebration. Her charm disarmed everyone, just as she had hoped. As the night went on, she quietly made her move. In the kitchen area, away from the guests, she switched the labels on 2 champagne glasses, the one meant for Emily and another she had tampered with earlier. A few drops of the clear, tasteless poison slipped into the bride's glass, dissolving instantly. She wiped her fingerprints from the bottle, her hands trembling only slightly. When it was time for the toast, Claire raised her glass with the others, her voice steady as she spoke kind words about friendship and love. Emily lifted her own glass, smiling brightly, completely unaware of what she was about to drink. Moments after taking a sip, Emily's expression changed. Her laughter faded, replaced by confusion. She clutched her stomach, gasping for breath, and then collapsed into Daniel's arms. The hall fell silent, music cutting off, as the perfect wedding turned to chaos. The reception hall that had been filled with music and laughter only moments earlier was now silent except for the sound of panicked voices. Guests gathered around Emily as she lay motionless on the floor, her white gown stained with spilled champagne. Paramedics arrived within minutes, rushing her to the hospital, but it was too late. The doctors could only confirm what no one wanted to believe. Emily Carter was gone. News of her sudden death spread through Maplewood like wildfire. The wedding that was meant to symbolize love had ended in tragedy. At first, everyone assumed it was a freak accident, perhaps an allergic reaction or sudden heart failure. Daniel was inconsolable, his grief so heavy that he could barely speak. Claire stayed by his side constantly, holding his hand and whispering words of comfort, acting every part of the grieving friend. But even in her sorrow, her calmness stood out. While others cried uncontrollably, she remained composed, offering tissues and kind words to anyone who needed them. Detectives were assigned to investigate, though few expected foul play. That changed when the toxicology report came back. Emily's blood contained traces of a rare poison not found in food or drinks typically served at weddings. The finding turned the case into a homicide investigation overnight. The police began interviewing guests, reviewing footage from the venue's security cameras, and tracking every step of the catering staff. Then they found something that changed everything. A clip showing Claire entering the serving area alone shortly before the toast. The timestamp matched the moment the champagne glasses had been switched. Fingerprint analysis confirmed what the cameras suggested. Claire's prints were on Emily's glass and on a small bottle later discovered in a trash bin behind the venue. The evidence was undeniable. When the detectives brought Claire in for questioning, she tried to stay calm, insisting she had nothing to do with Emily's death. She spoke softly, her eyes red from fake tears, claiming she had only been trying to help. But as the evidence was laid out before her, the fingerprints, the surveillance footage, and the toxicology report, her composure began to crack. Her voice faltered, her hands shook, and finally, she broke down completely. Between sobs, she confessed everything. She told investigators about the jealousy that had consumed her, how she had fallen in love with Daniel years before he ever met Emily. She spoke of sleepless nights, of watching them together and feeling invisible, of pretending to be happy while her heart filled with resentment. She admitted she had planned the poisoning weeks in advance, convincing herself it was the only way to end her pain. What had begun as envy had grown into a twisted obsession that pushed her past the point of return. The confession shocked everyone who heard it. People in Maplewood struggled to comprehend how someone so trusted could do something so cruel. Claire had once been seen as loyal, dependable, and kind, the kind of friend anyone would want. Now, she was a murderer, her name forever tied to a tragedy that shattered an entire community. In court, the evidence was overwhelming. The jury found her guilty of first-degree murder after only a few hours of deliberation. She showed no emotion as the verdict was read, only lowering her head as the judge sentenced her to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Daniel refused to attend the sentencing. He couldn't bear to see the person who had destroyed both his love story and his peace. For him, justice changed nothing. Months passed, but the town of Maplewood never truly recovered. The once joyful memories of Emily's wedding were now replaced by whispers of betrayal and sorrow. The church where she had walked down the aisle stood eerily quiet, its white roses long wilted. On a cold afternoon, a small memorial was held in her honor. Friends, family, and townspeople gathered to remember her laughter, her kindness, and the love that had filled her life, however brief it had been. Daniel stood by her grave, silent and pale, holding the bouquet she never got to keep. He placed it gently on the headstone, tracing her name engraved in marble. Every day since that night felt like a blur. Endless condolences, news stories, and court hearings that only deepened his grief. He had lost not only his wife, but also the woman he thought of as family. The betrayal ran deeper than words could express. Claire spent her days in prison, isolated from the world she once knew. The walls were cold, the days long, and her guilt relentless. She refused visitors and barely spoke to anyone. She wrote letters to Daniel, desperate to explain, to seek forgiveness, but they were returned unopened. Over time, her obsession faded, replaced by regret that came too late. The people of Maplewood rarely spoke her name anymore. To them, she was a reminder of how envy can rot even the purest bond. Emily's grave became a place of quiet reflection, often visited by strangers who left flowers and prayers. Years later, Daniel moved away, unable to bear the memories. But no matter where he went, he carried the same haunting thought, that love, trust, and friendship could be so easily destroyed by the darkness hidden in a single heart.